I'm Bella Lexi, and I'm here for the Anthony Rogers Show, and we are about to walk into Chicago Exotica.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Sean from Smile Empty Soul here in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri at Firebrand Recording, which is a wonderful studio here, tracking our new record, Swan Song, which will start to be released one song at a time here in probably about June, and then the whole thing will come out at the end of the year. So keep your ears peeled for it and check it out when it comes out.
So I'm Dennis with the Anthony Rogers Show podcast. My question for you is, what would you do if you became president to help the working class?
Well, I think the principal thing right now is housing. That the price of housing is going up, and it's beyond the reach of most American families.
Along with oil and gas and food.
Inflation is hurting everybody. And inflation is more complex. I can't say that I'm going to stop inflation overnight. What I can say is that I'm going to stop the long-term cause of inflation. I'm going to unravel the war machine. I'm going to reduce dramatically healthcare costs by ending the chronic disease.
Hey, it's your favorite comedian, Anthony Rogers, live in his tour bus, yeah. But also, you need to get a beard like this. People have been talking. They said your shit looks whack. It looks weird. They can't tell your pronouns. You need to get a beard like this right now. And the only way to do that is by using Luxurious Bastard Beard Oil. Great smell, great function, great everything. Just get this. And there's directions on how to use it if you know how to read. But use the link in the description. Go to the website. Use promo code LEGENDARY. Get a discount. Do it. Thank you. Boom.
Hi, I'm Danny from 710 Glass. Come check my shop out. This is our Capone rig. 10 mil joint. Smoke out of his head.
I'm AJ over at 710. This is our Puffco selection. This is a Peak Pro. It is completely Bluetooth compatible to your phone. You can control it completely from your phone. Lights, how long you want your session duration, what you want it to burn at.
Hi, I'm Jay at 710. Come check out our large selection of American hand pipes and American made glass.
Dude, we have everything.
Welcome back to your favorite podcast in the entire universe. I'm Anthony Rogers. If you couldn't guess, the name of the show is The Anthony Rogers Show. Real creative, super creative name. Today we have an interesting episode. I was talking downstairs in the bar area underneath my offices earlier with some of the people about today's subject matter and how we're covering an author or a doctor, rather, doctor and author that has an idea of how to change genes in your life and stuff like that. And then what she said was like, I don't think I could understand that, which was like the best response I've ever had to a podcast, because like I usually podcasts aren't this deep and like aren't. I mean, some have been, but it was a funny natural response from someone just hearing. They asked me who was on, and I told them the story, and they're like, "Wow, I don't know if I'll understand that." And I'm like, "Well, I probably won't either, but that's why that's why we have the guest on to dumb it down for us." And we have Dr. Kenneth Pelletier. How you doing, brother?
Hi, how are you? Good to be with you.
Good. Yeah, no, you're one of the happiest people I've ever met with a PhD, I feel like.
Thank you.
Not to typecast you, bro, but like a lot of those guys take themselves a little too seriously. Where your subject matter is super serious, but you just seem like kind of a fun guy from the little bit of a gist I've had talking to you, you know?
You got it. Well, you stay in school long enough with a PhD, MD, you got to learn a few things.
Yeah. You seem happy and stuff though, but okay, so dumb this down a little bit. And correct me where I'm wrong. I'm not trying to make assumptions. That I'm just trying to learn. So basically, you're saying you can modify your genes, basically.
Well, yes. I mean,
it's dumb it down for me.
Yeah. And your friend is saying that. I'm not going to understand it. It's actually it's actually really easy. I mean, the genes are like a blueprint, and whether you make a house that is X 1,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet, the blueprint is the same, and it's the expression. So it's what your body does with the blueprint that makes you who you are. So it's not the gene. The gene doesn't make you who you are. It's the expression of that. So you may have a gene that makes you smart, but if you never really exercise your brain, it's not going to show up. On the other hand, you may have a gene that has a moderate IQ. Person works really, really hard, and in fact, they turn out to be very intelligent. So it's what you do with what you have. That's the epigenetics.
No, it's interesting. How do these change, like outside of like ambition and stuff like that, and like and drive? Like how do you suggest like people like change these genes and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's good. That's the $1 billion question.
You're like, buy my book, bro. Just read the book. Read the book, bro.
That's a good start. So yeah, you're changing, and again, it's not the gene. The genes never change. So your gene at 1 year old is going to be the same as your core gene at 100, unless it's damaged. So it could be damaged by glyphosate, pesticides. It can be damaged by radiation, extreme heat, extreme cold, and then in that case, it'll alter over time. But given all those things not contributing, it's going to stay the same. What changes is the day-to-day things that we do with diet, with exercise, with stress, with pharmacology, environmental exposure, being with friends. Those things create the expression, and that's what changes, is the expression of that basic gene.
Interesting. Okay, so you can control like, or you can rather like rule out like weak genetics and like work through them, kind of in a lack of like better terminology. That's what we're proposing.
Yeah. I mean, people think, oh, the genes govern everything I do, how long I'll live, what diseases I'll get. It doesn't work that way. Something like 5 to 8% of who we are as adults, as fully mature adults, has to do with what they call monogenic or fully penetrant genes, meaning if you have that gene, it will show up in you as an adult. The other 95% of the time, it has to do with what you do and what happens with, again, diet and stress and exercise, social support, friends, environmental exposure. That's what governs who you become. And we make choices. If you think about it, we make choices all the time. We make choices about what we eat, how we manage stress, whether we're physical or not, whether we laugh or not, which I know you're an expert at. Which is a really good thing, by the way. Laughter is one of the most powerful forms of gene alteration that we have, which is interesting.
Well, it's the best coping mechanism for life. I didn't realize it altered genes though. That's interesting. Like, and is this an energy or frequency type thing, or is this like, or is this just like, I like dumb this down a little bit, like if you could.
Yeah, sure. Well, the gene is, you have genes in every cell. And around that gene is wrapped a molecular sheath. It's like a glove around your hand. That molecular sheath holds your ears. You don't have to remember that. There's no quiz at the end of this. It's called a single nucleotide polymorphism. And it's a sheath of little rheostats. And so those rheostats are interacting with your body chemistry. When your body chemistry is stressed, it pushes the gene expression one way. When you're not stressed, it pushes it another way. So we're continually, literally right now, with what we're doing, what we're saying, we're altering the expression of our genes day in and day out. That's what's so amazing about it. And it's through this mechanism. That's how the outside gets inside, which is a stressor, a diet, or whatever, affects the single nucleotide polymorphisms, the little rheostats that in turn allow the gene to be expressed or not. That's the mechanism.
That's interesting. That's so how did you come to find this out and stuff? Like, was it something that someone told you, or you kind of stumbled upon, or like what kind of thing? How'd this all come about?
Well, when I was in medical school, all we knew about genetics was Watson and Crick. the double-stranded molecule, DNA to RNA replication. End of lecture. That was all we were told. That was it.
Oh,
So that was a long time ago.
the
But
base, yeah.
about 10 years ago, part of my research is a corporate program. I work with companies to develop health programs. And the executives kept asking, should we include genetic testing in our annual physical? And I said, I have no idea. I was so far, I don't know anything about it. So about 10 years ago, we have a Nobel Prize winner here at our medical school. And I went to her and I said, can you update me on genetics? And she rolled her eyes and she said, remember how you hated biochemistry? I said, yeah, everybody hates biochemistry. She said, well, get ready. But genetics is like biochemistry on steroids. This is going to be the worst learning you're ever going to go through. So that's how I got into it. And when I got into it, I realized it's really fascinating. And we're just beginning, this whole area, it's just starting.
My friend's a writer, and his name is Jeff, and he was telling me that there's ways to reverse the aging in genes. Are you familiar with that, or like?
Absolutely. The faculty member I was talking about, her name is Elizabeth Blackburn, and there's a marker for aging. It's called a telomere. It's an X-shaped chromosome, and she was the one that got the Nobel Prize in 2009 for her discovery of the telomere, which is a marker for aging. And she also then has done some studies and interventions where you can reverse or improve, or decelerate the aging process. You can reverse it, you can improve it, and that's real. This is not science fiction. There's a little more detail than you might want, but in end of November of last year, 2023, there's an organization known as the X Prize, and they put up awards that are challenge grants for doing something like they put up $10 million for the first round the world solo flight, and someone won that. Well, in November, they put up the largest prize that's ever been created in anything, much less in medicine, of $110 million.
Wow.
110 million. The 110 million is for in the next decade to any and all people that want to try it, to develop an intervention for people that will halt or reverse human aging.
Wow, you're gonna need a lot more than $110 million if you keep living, though. If you keep reversing it, you might need some more money. But no, that's where we're at right now as a society. If it's not already developed for the rich, I don't know this yet. But I mean, that's where we're at as it publicly, the science publicly. That's where it's at, and that's very interesting. Like we might be one of the last generations to die, or the first generations to die slower.
Well, we're all, the reality is that we have all over the planet, you're familiar with the blue zones. So the blue zones are communities. Dan Buettner wrote a book called Blue Zones. Dan's a good friend. And he identified 5 communities all over the world where people regularly live to be 110 to 115.
Is that from the blue zones? That's like the food they're eating, right? That's like this blue food.
No, no, but the blue zones. It actually, ironically, comes from when they were mapping them. They used blue pins to identify where they were located.
I'm mixing up stories. Okay, no, thanks for explaining that. I like the wrongs I learned.
Yeah, okay, that's where blue zones came from, because they had pins in the map and they were blue, and they called it the blue zones.
Okay.
But these are communities, and they have, there's nothing remarkable. They don't use unusual pharmacology. They don't do transfusions. They don't do genetic transplants or all of the extremes that we're hearing about. It's due to their lifestyle. It's all the things we've been talking about, that when you put them together, it's when you put the parts of a recipe together, it makes something good to eat. They put all the parts together that make their lives be extended. Yep.
That's amazing science where we're at. We're almost to the fountain of youth. I mean, we've been searching for in the 1700s publicly, at least. And like, Janie's asking, reverse aging, like going back to my 30s. Like, can you reverse the look and the feel and everything, or what exactly are they looking at?
Well, it's not so much to reverse the aging as to slow it down. So right now there's a thing called the Hayflick limit, and the Hayflick limit is roughly 120 years old, and that was developed by a biologist at Berkeley with cells, and he replicated cells under optimal conditions, and he said if you were a human being and replicating like this, how long would you live? And he said it was 120. Now that was in the 1960s that he came up with that. It's been known as the Hayflick limit. So right now, if you think about it, the average life expectancy for women in the United States is roughly early 80s. For men, it's in the mid 70s. So we're short living. It's not a matter of pushing up to 130 or 140 or 150, which, by the way, I think is possible.
I do too.
But we are short living by 30 or 40 years. That's the goal right now, is to basically preserve the life we have.
Yeah, biblically speaking, the oldest person was Methuselah, I believe. That was like 800 years old. So people technically lived a long time in like biblical documentation. It seems like, but in like modern day documentation, I think 120 is the oldest I've seen. Like
123. 123.
Okay, 123. Okay.
Yep, she was a woman in Paris, Jeanne Calumet, and you'll like. This is a great story. Actually, she's one of my favorite people of all time. She died about 5 years ago at age 123 and maybe 5 months. So
wow.
She's an interesting case because she's the white crow. In science, you always talk about what's the exception that proves the rule. So the white crow, she lived more than 120 years, means it's possible for a human being to live more than 120. So when she was about 119, they interviewed her for the Guinness Book of Records. And they asked her, so how did you get to live to be 119, I guess, at the time? She said, well, fine brandy, young men, and Gauloise. Now, Gauloise are those disgusting little French cigarettes, right?
I remember this lady now that you're talking. I remember that quote.
So that was her solution. So she lived to be 123. And now I think the oldest person documented in the United States right now is about 116. It's a woman in Ohio.
Wow.
That just has celebrated their 116th birthday. So these extreme ages are becoming more common, and they're more common worldwide.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm seeing like young deaths, like in their 50s, like people, and then I'm seeing like really old, like American in modern times are very interesting. It's like certain people. I mean, like my mom, for example. My mom never smoked and barely drank. I mean, she ate kind of BS food, I guess, is her weak point. But I mean, she passed like 57. Where my grandma on my father's side, she's like almost 90, and she chain smokes and drinks beer and so there's really, I mean, it's weird because I don't know how to describe it, but like all the things, like we don't really know. I mean, you might know, but most people don't really know what the difference between a smoker dying young or a smoker living old, a person who's healthy, like that runner guy. Remember that runner guy? He was running everywhere and he died. He dropped dead in his 50s.
Yes.
Like I was, yeah. That's,
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, we have all these weird outlying situations, and I just don't understand what it really is that makes us live long, other than like the cell replication, and I think that's what people are really going towards. Is I think your cells stop replicating. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a science guy, but your cells stop reproducing so fast as you get older, right?
Yes.
Replicating and stuff. That's what aging is basically.
Yes, pretty much, or inaccurately. They replicate, but they're inaccurate. It's like if you make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, before long, there's no more information. And that's what happens with cells as we age. So what we call the blurring, if you will, of the information between copies of cells, aging. That's what we call it.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, the way you said that.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, the way you described that made a lot of sense. And I think that's the sign of a really intelligent person, is like to take complex issues and make them like Beatles songs, like 4-letter words and stuff. I think that's I think that's kind of a sign of true intelligence rather than just trying to seem intelligent. And I think that, from my perspective at least, and that's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we did, if it exists, that we don't already have it. Just as far as how the world works, how we're like all these secret cloning operations and whatever we have going on. I mean, like public science and science are just completely different. I feel like,
Yeah, I would agree. And going back to the blue zones, there is no formula. I mean, that is an absolute certainty. Like you say, the smoker that lives to 90 and the person who dies jogging in their 50s. So there's no formula. If you said today, what's the formula to live for, 110 years? That's what this X Prize is going to challenge the whole world of scientists to come up with. They're not going to find it, but they're going to try. So there is no formula. And what it is, it's this complex mix of things that involve the environment. We call them the divine dozen. There are 12 characteristics if you will, of the blue zone communities. When you take these factors together and you put them all together, it creates extreme life expectancy. That's not what the people are after. They don't live to live a long time. They just live their lives, and that's what's critical. So, and these are without any of the technology, without any of the drugs, without any of the manipulations of genes that we're working with now. So this is, if you will, a complex system that produces decelerated aging.
Interesting, like less scientific, but a common ground I see in like people in their 80s and stuff that are like moving around and living life is that they're really busy. Well, like they're doing a bunch of like their itinerary makes me look lazy and I feel accomplished. It's like they're waking up at like 6, they're eating breakfast, they're reading the paper, they're going out and doing stuff, they're driving like to go look at like, a vehicle 3 states away, they're farming still, they're doing all this. I mean that's the most common ground I see in a very barbaric description is like not really much science other than like the lack of stagnation. It is these guys are just moving around and like just doing a million things. Those are the people I see that live long, and I think that might be the difference between my mom and like somebody like my wife's grandfather who's like an 88-year-old farmer still.
Yep.
And I think that like that's the difference. My mom kind of sat around a lot, and like I mean she was a skewed study because she had rheumatoid arthritis in childhood and several medical problems on top of that. But I'm saying like if you just looked at it surface level, a lot of it's the water, the food, the what they're breathing, like you're saying, I think you brought up a lot of those external factors. It definitely seems like it's a lot of that. Like if you're drinking well water and you're out doing stuff, I mean, it seems like you're like rainwater and stuff's doing it for people, and like real water, not that filtration water system everybody else is drinking. That's just disgusting if you look into it. Like I don't want to go into it too much, but I'm just saying that's what I noticed with like a lot of people. They have plans. They have a lot of plans. Like a lot of people like that are just like, okay, well, I'm doing this. And these 80-year-olds will run circles around me with like their day, like still. And I'm like 37, which I mean, like, you mean like middle-aged ish, I guess. But it's like, it's crazy seeing these 80-year-olds just like farm and like do all this crazy stuff constantly. And I respect it. And I'm just like, and that's the one thing I see that's not like this, that's not too deep into the science of living longer. It's these people just being really busy.
Well, actually, you've hit on one of the 12, which is they are all these communities. The blue zones are all farming communities.
So they're eating fresh food and they're active.
They're eating fresh food, and they don't have gymnasiums. They don't have personal trainers, but they're farmers. They're bending, they're twisting, they're lifting, they're walking. So all of and we know, and this is now looking at the science. We know that physical activity extends life expectancy. Just what you just said now, that these people are active and they're moving and they keep on moving. It's use it or lose it. So if you're not moving, working your cardiovascular system, stretching, and using your body, it's going to deteriorate. There's no question about that. So again, you hit on one of the biggest variables, which is physical activity. And one of the 12 characteristics that we found in these blue zone communities is all of them are farmers. They walk, they ride bicycles, they don't drive cars. By and large, they may have a car, but it's like for short distances or unusual trips. So it's a big factor in longevity.
Well, that made me feel better because that's how I am. I rarely drive and I hate it, and I ride a bike everywhere. I ride an e-bike. Granted, I do ride an e-bike, but I do pedal the whole time. So it's like, I love that exercise aspect of it, and I kind of work out like all day. I kind of work out like 2 to 4 hours depending on what I'm doing, like with the bike ride included and stuff. And I definitely think that's increased. I mean, a lot. Definitely has helped me out where I'm at right now. I think I watched my mom like lose muscle and stuff, so I realized that like I just want to like keep working out, so when I'm like old, I have a lot to take from.
Keep it up. again, you know, lean body mass is what you're talking about, is that you're maintaining lean body mass by exercising. One of the things that deteriorates most rapidly after about 70 years old is you begin to lose muscle mass, and you have basically no muscle tissue. You become fat, your limbs get flaccid, and that's one of the things that leads to falls and fractures, which is a major cause of disability in the aging population. So
And
keeping muscle tone, you know, doing aerobics, doing weightlifting, you know, strength training is really more critical than ever. And that's become now basically a guideline that's recommended from the NIH, which is, you know, weightlifting. It does seem strange, but it has come full cycle. I don't mean building, you know, bodybuilder weightlifting. I mean just moderate 10 to 15 pound weights, but regular workouts.
Yeah. No, I see that a lot because I work out. I work out when everybody else, like my job is like obviously right now instead of like in the morning. So in the mornings I'll work out with a bunch of like I'll see all these like people in the pools, like these older people in the pools doing everything. And I'm like that's smart. And I always make jokes like I say, and I work out with the elderly so I can be elderly. I always like everybody else is like in their cubicle or whatever their dream is, raising their kids. You know what I mean, living their dream and stuff. And I'm just like I just work out through the mornings like typically. And I see that a lot. I see that there's a lot of very active people in the community I'm in, and like and just the state I'm in. And I definitely think that's a huge factor. And I definitely think eating clean is probably good too. I think like a lot of these like my mom just ate Cheetos and Oreos. Like even when she was sick, I'm just like, what are you doing? I'm just like that's like a dessert at best. You know what I mean? That's like a maybe eat. I mean, I'm known to eat a bag of Oreos too, but also I eat chicken and I eat a bunch of. I eat a lot of stuff before dessert. You know, I don't just eat dessert. You know. And like the sugar in our foods, the preservatives. I mean, the water is probably the grossest thing we're drinking. Like if you break down the water system, I'm just like, what are people drinking? Even like it's just like
yeah.
And then I have like just a bunch of 5-gallon like well water jugs. I try. I mean, but here's the thing: you can't do it everywhere though. You can't do it well, you can. But you risk dehydration almost because I mean at work I have to drink this like filtered reverse osmosis stuff that I still don't really trust where the water comes from. 'Cause I'm in a major city that's on like all major cities are on in decline. So and then the old pipes it's going through and stuff. And like I always like the water is like the older I get, the more I notice there's several different types of water.
Like, oh yeah, very much.
As a kid, I'm just like, you mean I thought there's soda and water and milk. You know what I mean? I thought it was like that dumb. And like there's so many different kinds. I mean, I see a lot of guys. This one rock star I had on, he was like, I forget, I think he was in Taproot. He's like a rock band from the early 2000s, 90s and stuff. He drinks raw milk and eats raw like meat. He doesn't cook the meat or anything like that. And the dude looks 14. Like he's probably 50 something. He looks 14.
Yeah. He's on a ketogenic. He sounds like he's on a ketogenic diet, which will catch it. It's not a good thing to do, by the way. It'll catch up with you.
Oh, will it? Okay.
Oh, yeah. He may look 14 now, but a ketogenic diet is very injurious to your heart. So he'll end up with probably pretty severe heart disease. And it's also dangerous. I mean, raw meat and raw milk, you have to be really careful. I mean, one, you can eat that and consume that, there's no doubt, but you have to be absolutely certain of the sources, that it's not contaminated, doesn't contain lead, doesn't contain pesticides or steroids, and you can't know that unless you really know your sources. But you've hit on, when you're talking about all these diet things, diet is the one most explored area that impacts longevity and optimal health, unequivocally. So having raw foods, locally grown, organic, antioxidant foods, like and having your protein source come not from meat and products, but from vegetable sources. Those are or fish. Those are the best general dietary guidelines for people.
Are you vegetarian?
Yeah, I have been. Well, yes.
I had a feeling by the way you said it. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, it honestly, I have to be honest now. It wasn't a philosophical decision that my parents told me when I was a little kid, like 4 or 5 years old. I never liked the texture or the taste of red meat. I just didn't like it. And so we lived in Rhode Island on the seacoast, and it was easy to get all the fish and so they switched over. They allowed me to eat fish instead of meat. And then when I was maybe 12 or 13, I decided, okay, I've had enough fish. I still eat fish, but not as much. And basically transitioned into a kind of pescatarian diet, not pure vegetarian, but more pescatarian. And now the science is catching up and saying, yeah, that's really good for you, and it is conducive to long life.
Yeah, I'm seeing both. I'm seeing that, and I see a lot of healthy vegetarians and vegans and stuff, and then I see a lot of really healthy people on that carnivore diet. But a lot of people
Yeah.
are telling me, kind of like what you're saying, like that meats are bad for the heart, and like red meats and stuff like that. But then I'm like hearing like what they want us to eat, and it's just like this like sugar bread, like whatever. I mean, like the food table just seems like a sales tactic, or the food pyramid just seems like a sales tactic to me. And like for farmers to sell more products. I mean, from my perspective, that's maybe my bitterness of being an American, but I think that I see both sides. Some people can do the carnivore diet and then they're jacked
Yeah.
and they look young, and then some
Yep.
people are eating vegetarian and they look really young too. So it's like, are they both true? I just don't. I don't know at this point. It's hard to have a case study because like life's so short. You know what I mean? It's hard to have a mass case study, really.
Well, it's interesting is what you're talking about is what in our research we call epigenetic assays. So you can answer that question. So for one diet does not fit anyone. There's no such thing, right? So some
makes
people can eat, very high meat protein, smoke, heavy fat, and they're fine because genetically their body is set up to be able to manage that. Other people can't do that. And because genetically they cannot tolerate that, their body can't digest it. So we have assays now. You can for about they're kind of pricey, maybe $400 or $500. You can do what they call epigenetic assays, and it will tell you exactly what to eat and what to avoid. And it's totally idiosyncratic. From one person to the next, you won't find virtually any commonality. Some people will say eat a lot of fruits and nuts. Another person will say eat a lot of red meat. Another person will say eat only fish. But it's the recommendation. So you have to know, and we're getting there. In the next 4 to 5 years, you'll be able to get a basic biochemical assay for your individual body biochemistry that will tell you exactly the best foods for you to eat. You don't have to follow it, but it'll give you some guidance as to what is best for your particular metabolism.
Yeah, I need to figure that out, and I need to stick with it because I'll eat pretty healthy a lot of times, but I always get I get double desserts and there's shakes or something afterwards. It's like I always say it's like I could probably be 90 if I did a lot of the things that made me not want to be 90. If I stopped eating like hot wings, I love hot wings, and like if I stopped eating certain things, like it's just like I see, and I put hot sauce and everything my entire life. I'm sorry, I mean I love all that stuff, but it's like, yeah, I can see I can see it being individually based, which is probably very. I never once thought of that. I always thought we're all humans, blah blah blah. Yeah, but there's so many variables. You're right. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, and the reality is that none of the people that live to be 110 to 115 have that as their objective. So they're not eating in a particular way, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to make sure I live to be 100 or 110." They live life. Their objective is to live fully and completely with family, with friends, with a spiritual belief, with farming, with eating good diets, with having a healthy environment, getting good medical care. So they're busy living their life. They're not busy living their life in order to live it for a long time. That's what's so remarkable about it. So what you're describing is you're living your life. And that's honestly, I think that's the most important factor for anyone. It's not how long you live, it's the quality, not necessarily the quantity.
No, that's a good point. I was gonna make a joke earlier when you said that women live longer than men, and I was like, well, it's because but we had more life in that time. I was just like, I was gonna make it just out of a ridiculous joke. I heard you say that earlier. I'm like, yeah, no, I think that too, and it's like, I mean, that's a great point too. Is like I don't think anybody's like I'm going to be the oldest person on the planet. I mean, at a certain point, I think you realize that once you hit like 100, you're like, okay, I'm in the game. I'm in the running for it. I mean, at a certain point, you probably think that. But yeah, no, like a lot of these people, it doesn't seem like that was their goal or their plan. They were just living, and then all of a sudden they outlived everybody they ever knew, which is a weird kind of curse too. It's like I want to die before my wife. I don't want to deal with that. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to deal with that. I already lost a parent, grandparents. All that. I don't want to deal with the losing a spouse. So I married younger. So I better outlive I better not outlive my wife.
That sounds like a good plan.
but I mean, it's a certain curse to living forever too. I mean, unless everybody does, it's like
Yeah.
like I look at a guy like my wife's grandfather. I think he's 88, maybe 89 now, or he turns 89 this year. I mean, he outlived he outlived his wife. He outlived
Right.
he was the youngest brother, and he outlived all of his siblings. Well, that makes sense, I guess, if you're youngest. Yeah, sorry. I was like, that's a shock. Well, the guy born last died last. No, but no, I mean, you basically outlive everything you love and care about. I mean, unless you keep going. And I mean, he's already on great grandkids that are like driving now too. So it's like, I mean, so I mean, there's beauty in it too, being able to see your great grand kid like grow up as an adult too. So I see that, but it's like, I just say I don't know that I'd want to live forever. I don't know that I would. I mean, it's easy to say right now at 37 when I theoretically have maybe, I don't know, 40 years left or something, or 30, depending on how I live.
You've got another 80 or 90 years to live.
I mean, with science right now, maybe you might be right, as long as I'm not poor, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
like only in the future, only the poor die. It's like,
yeah,
it's going to be like that at first.
That's a serious issue.
Yeah, that's what's going to be like. At first anyway. Until it's the same thing. Like a DVD player was like $900 when it came out. Now it's like $5. So, I mean, that's just how technology works.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just interesting. That's it has me thinking a lot. Like, I mean, we're blessed to even be here at all, and it's cool that people are like looking into the research into making it longer. And like, I don't know if you're Christian or not. It's not necessarily important if we agree, see eye to eye. Really, I mean, I don't care if anybody agrees. I mean, like, no, what I mean? It's not like everyone else does somehow. I don't care if anyone agrees with anything. But I do think that I think before assuming what I think's real and all this has happened and stuff, I think before the flood the air was better or something, and just certain things, because we seem like, if you look at a topographical map, we look like we're on the top of mountains from the flood basically, and a lot of this stuff, it looked like it only receded slightly from Noah's flood. That's what it seems like to me anyway, just from like looking and daydreaming and not being around. I wasn't around. I have no evidence, but I'm just saying, like, I my mind wanders there. And I'm like, was the air better? Was the food better? Was all this stuff? Because like these people were living like way longer back in the day. It seemed like, I mean, hundreds of years. I mean, you know what I mean? And I believe that, I really do. And I just wonder, like, we think we're in like the top tier of science, and how many times have we destroyed ourselves with technology and started back over with sticks on this weird planet? I mean, there's so many things we probably already discovered and forgot about. Even it's just a weird thing to think about.
Well, I think that's true. If you look at the state of our planet now, the environment, global heating, global warming, the rising of the oceans, the pollution of the food supply, water supply, air quality, we're living in a very toxic world compared to, say, 50 years ago, even 10 years ago. And it's not getting any better. And that has a profound impact. That directly impacts your genes. Is going to shorten your life expectancy if you live a polluted, noisy environment, eating junk food, drinking polluted water, doing all the things that we've been talking about. There's certainly ways to shorten your life expectancy, and most of us do a pretty good job on that.
Yeah, that seems easier to control. Like to live less seems easier. But okay, are you in San Francisco? I read.
Carmel.
Carmel
it's a little town about an hour south of San Francisco, right on the coast.
Okay, so you're still Bay Area-ish.
Yeah.
What I noticed is like I haven't been there in years, so this could be outdated or incorrect at this point. But I remember going to California in like the 2000s, and like the Bay was kind of clean. And then I went back in like 2014. There's just trash in it everywhere, and that's the last time I've probably been there to that side. Maybe 2015 was the last time I was there. So it's like it seemed like way more polluted than it was just even 10 years before, like you're saying.
It used to be. You went through a period. You hit a period of time where you saw it relatively clean and became very polluted. And so the basically the greater Bay Area really banded together with legislation and with environmentalists. And now the Bay is actually cleaner than it has been probably for 100 years. So whales are returning, dolphins, the fish population of salmon and other fish are repopulating the Bay. So it's actually cleaner and a better environment now than it's been in a long, long time. So there's a few positive things happening, but you have to look for them.
Enough. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting too. Like, yeah, that is true. Like in the book, like it does say that. But no, I was reading that comment. But yeah, so I mean that you just made my day telling me that, to be honest, because like I think that's really cool that they cleaned up that water and stuff. And like I mean, it just are you familiar? This is like totally not in the subject we're talking about whatsoever. But have you been to Bolinas, California?
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh, dude, most beautiful place I've ever seen on earth.
I totally agree.
That is like that was like, and it was. I love the story behind that because, like, I want to say, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, because you live around there, so you probably know better than me. But that area was like, no one knew it existed, and well, some people did, but it wasn't. The public didn't know it existed until until MapQuest and like Google Maps and Apple Maps happened, and then they found this little offshoot where you drive through these like mountains or hills forever. Right. And then you get to this beautiful, beautiful area, man. Like I did a show at are you familiar with Smiley Saloon out there?
Yes. Yes.
Dude, I did one of my first on my first comedy tours. I hit that, and that was the hardest spot to do comedy because everything's so like beautiful and amazing, and it's hard to have any angry observational humor when you're in paradise. You know, it was
it's true.
It was a really weird, and plus everyone in the audience spoke French with me. I think it was a bunch of French people there for traveling. Were there for like the period of time I was there, and like that is the most beautiful place I've seen on earth so far.
It is. That's where the Jefferson Airplane lived there in the 60s.
I did not know that.
That's awesome. In Bolinas. It was one of their haunts, and a number of other rock bands. They were the one band that I knew of that lived out there. But it's still beautiful. It's still isolated and beautiful. And it's very limiting. They really limit the amount of development, and they limit even the size of houses. And so they're very restrictive. They keep it to a small town. They don't want to build it into a city, and it works. I mean, it's still you'd recognize it. If you went back there, it's still funky. It's still great.
Yeah, I haven't been in probably 10 years exactly, or maybe 9.
You'd recognize it. I mean, it has not changed.
That's amazing. I know we're off subject with that, but I don't know too many people that know about that town. But no, that's a beautiful area, and like I love that. I love that view, man. And like a picture never does it justice. Like you cannot just take a picture of it. It's like those purple mountains in Virginia, man. You just can't take a picture of it. Like
right. Totally agree with that.
That's awesome that you even know. That's awesome you even know where that's at. You're probably like one of 3 people that I personally know that even knows that's a town, and had more information than I had on it, which is interesting too. Like that's a great area. Like, so you're a professor also. You
yes.
believe I read?
Yeah, professor of medicine.
That's amazing, man. That's quite an accomplishment, man. That's I feel like I'm going to do that eventually. I mean, not medicine, something dumber, you know, but so something less intelligent, less work, you know. But I'd love to be a professor of something eventually, and like I love that concept. Like whenever people just get tired of hearing my podcast, I could just make college students have to listen to me talk. You know, that's how I feel about it. I think it's a very cool job, and like your job's learning basically, and then like
it is.
Yeah, and then taking your information and making it like transparent rather than like the problem. I don't want to go down this road too far, but the problem I have with a lot of guys with PhDs is like they hide behind it. They like hide behind their education and think they're just like infallible and like and just like they're just like it goes to their head. But you don't seem. I don't know you that well, but you don't seem like it does through you. You seem like you have information that you can make interesting, and you seem like you have a fun sense of humor and stuff, and like and you don't let it go to your head. Like you just put Ken as your name. You didn't put like doctor this and that. I mean you. And I think that's very important, and that's probably why you're learning still, is because a lot of these guys like they think that and like I'm not gonna name names, and I don't want to dwell on negativity too much. It's kind of ridiculous to do that, but I see that's the problem I see with academics is in academia as a whole is they hide behind like pieces of paper and education, which are important. They are important, but they're not the only form of intelligence. And I would have on I had on like a quantum physicist with a member of Insane Clown Posse, and the guy from Insane Clown Posse seemed more intelligent than the guy who was bragging about being intelligent. It was just like and you never know. I mean, you could take a homeless guy could cure cancer. You know what I mean? You don't have to be a doctor to cure cancer. I mean, from my perspective, and I think that's an extreme example, but I'm just saying like, I love that you're not just like, I don't know, man. I love your energy, and I love that you're not just like, just on your own ego. Like, I mean, I think as men, we have to separate from that as much as we can, because it is easy to fall into, you know, I mean,
I don't confuse my education with my life.
I love that.
You know, that's pretty simple. I mean, there's information that you gather by going through PhD, MD programs, and you have knowledge, you have information. Unless you use it, and unless you try to communicate it to people like our conversation now, to me, it's useless. But again, I have fun with my work. I love what I do. I love my work. I love writing, etc. But I don't confuse loving my work with loving my life. They're different. So I take a lot of time off. I travel a lot. I sail. I'm a major. I've been since I was 5 years old. I've been a sailor. So whenever I can, I'm out on the water and sailing, and that's just good for the soul. It's done more than any meditation that ever has, is just to be out on the water on a boat.
Yeah, you seem open-minded still, and do you see yourself as kind of a child still, like just like the fast? Dude, I thought that. You seem like you have the childish wonder and still you didn't lose that. It doesn't seem like Picasso would say your inner artist didn't die.
Yeah. No, not at all. I mean, I get delighted by finding some information or fact that is amazing in the scientific literature. Or I love going swimming. I've been swimming with humpback whales, many times, and dolphins many times.
Wow.
Every time that happens, it's like it's like being a little kid, because you know nothing about them, and it's a wonderful experience, and it just keeps you alive and vital. And we've talked about laughter. When you laugh like you do, and we've been doing this for our discussion, that instantaneously changes your body from a degenerative, catabolic energy mobilization, destructive phase to anabolic, regenerative function instantaneously. As soon as you laugh, your body goes into a regenerative state. So humor, I mean, you have to have humor, or else you're really in bad shape.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. It's a coping mechanism for a seemingly insane world. It's like if I believed everything, if I believed everything on television, the world ended already. But if I believe everything on the internet and television, we're already ghosts. The world ended 4 years ago. But and then it also ended in 1999, and then it also ended all these other times. But it's just but I think that we have to have a sense of humor in this weird polite fascism we're in. I think the world. I mean, the representation of the world is insane. I don't think the world actually is insane. But this is okay. As an intelligent person, I want to get your opinion on this though. Global warming, for example, my opinion on global warming is that the mass of the sun exceeds the mass of the earth, and we're spiraling into the sun over a slow amount of time. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the global warming doesn't have to do with any change in the orbit around the sun. But what it does have to do with is the exponential heating. So there's always been a gradual heating of the planet because of industrialization. The biggest issue now in the last 4 or 5 years has been it's ramped up. It's gone from arithmetic gradual increase to geometric increasing. So the planet is just now, Antarctica glaciers are melting. I was just there in January in Antarctica, and we had to deviate on the boat we were on a National Geographic trip because a glacier the size of Connecticut, the entire state of Connecticut, a glacier the size of Connecticut had just broken off from Antarctica and was melting. That's never occurred before. So what we're dealing with is the rate of change in the extreme temperatures that are occurring. There was an article just last week, actually, in Scientific American that looked at, we've always had this thing that we're going to have 1.5 degrees of warming. And they interviewed 700 some odd ecology scientists, and they basically said, that's a fiction. We'll be lucky if we go to 2.5, and more likely it's going to be 3 degrees of heating. And at 3 degrees of heating, the effects are really catastrophic. Most of the southeast of the United States will be underwater. Major cities, ranging from Singapore to New York to Miami, will literally be underwater. So the issue with global warming is not so much any change in orbit around the sun, it's the excessive fossil fuel burning that we've been engaged in now for decades, and with no end in sight.
Yeah, I see that as a factor, and then a lot of the new countries that just hit their industrial revolution within the last 50 years or so, they don't have as many regulations as we have. A lot of it's not necessarily even America. I mean, not to play the blame game, but it's the underdeveloped world that just became developed. And okay, so as a conspiracy theorist, I don't meet too many people that went to Antarctica. One, how did you get to go to Antarctica first before? And
Well,
I got a second one too.
I love to travel. I mean, I'll go anywhere, anytime. I was in.
I meant legally speaking. Is it not forbidden by every country?
Oh, no, no, no. No, in National Geographic, there are a number of companies that run trips. So National Geographic is one that I travel with pretty often, but it's what they call their small ship expeditions. So it's about 110 people on a relatively small ship. And you can definitely go to Antarctica. And this is kind of a funny story, but toward the end of the trip, if you want to, they do what they call a polar plunge, which means you get to jump into the ocean. And the ocean there is literally 0 degrees. I mean,
Did you do it?
Yes.
What's that like, bro? What's that like?
It's crazy. I mean, you really think you're going to die because instantaneously, when you go in really cold water, your ankles ache.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, when you jump into 0 degree water, your whole body does that. It just shuts down and you feel the cold in your bones. But I'd gotten to know the medical director on board the ship, and she stands at the top of the ladder with a defibrillator because some people hitting the water at 0 degrees go into cardiac arrest. So she was standing at the top of the stairs, and I had been talking to her the week before about the fact that I'd been swimming in the Arctic Ocean. And so when I started climbing up the stairs, she said, "Congratulations, you've been swimming the Arctic Ocean, and now you've been swimming the Antarctic Ocean. I pronounce you bipolar."
That's funny, man. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, back to conspiracy theories about Antarctica. What are your thoughts on inner Earth and that being like a gateway to inner Earth? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I really don't.
Have you heard this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard those theories.
Like Admiral Byrd flew into it supposedly.
Yeah, I've seen those theories and I've read up on them. This trip was much more conventional. I mean, Antarctica is huge, by the way.
Right.
The landmass under the ice of Antarctica is 2.5 times larger than the United States.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No, most people don't, because we're used to looking at the planet from the northern hemisphere down. When you look at it from the southern hemisphere, you realize it stretches over the whole base of the planet. So 2.5 times as large. So when you go down there and you say, "Yeah, I've been to Antarctica," it's like saying, "Well, you've been to North America because you went to Boston."
Yeah, it totally makes sense, man.
Right. So I honestly, I don't know what to make of any of the conspiracy theories about hidden civilizations or entries into an underworld in Antarctica. I certainly didn't encounter that, but I'm aware of that.
No, it's interesting. I don't meet too many people that have been to Australia. I've been to Antarctica. I don't know why. I don't know too many people that went to Antarctica, so I had to ask that question, not waste it.
Yeah, well, I've been I can tell you one thing. I've been all over the world, and it's the most strange place I've ever been because there's no human habitation year round. There are research stations, but that's it. There's no lights, no cars, no roads, no music. So it's dead quiet. It is so, it's eerie how quiet it is. And you're right in the middle of the Milky Way. So when you look up at the sky, you can't tell if you're looking at white stars or black stars. I mean, it's like this figure ground ambiguity because it's so bright on the night sky. So it's the most unusual place that I've ever been. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I wanted to figure that out at some point in my life. I just that seems wild. I didn't know there wasn't. It makes sense. It's not developed. I just never really thought about it. It's like I mean, it's an abnormal terrain to maintain. I imagine. So it's like so I mean, it's like parts of Alaska. I imagine, but worse, I guess, because it's even colder. That's crazy.
Right. Well, getting to Antarctica is difficult because you leave by boat from the southern tip of South America. Ushuaia is the southernmost tip of Argentina. And it takes 2 days of crossing the Straits of the Drake Strait to get to Antarctica. So you're in the open ocean for 2 days. And that can be very, very rough. It's where the Atlantic and the Pacific merge. And so it can be violently, turbulent during that crossing. So it kind of keeps people out of there. It kind of limits the number of people that are willing to go through that.
Yeah, I heard, and I heard this on the internet, not from any reputable source whatsoever. But just to be honest and clear, I heard that there's like a bunch of treaties that said you couldn't go to Antarctica. Is there only certain parts we're allowed to go? Or are you allowed to explore on your own, or like what? How does that work?
You can go anywhere. I mean, there's no
Okay,
limits.
I did never
Um,
knew that.
the treaties basically are between nations, so no nation can own Antarctica.
Ah, okay, that makes more sense.
That's what the treaties do. They prevent. It's like with the moon. Now the issue is no ownership of the moon, and so now that's getting kind of raising its head with China and India and the United States all racing to get in Japan to get to the moon. It's like the same principle, which is no country can own the moon, no country can own Antarctica. And you've got research stations, the British, the French, the Americans all have research stations there, but that's it. That's the extent. And they're only, for limited periods of time. The winters are brutal. Right now, it's summer. January for them is like August for us. It was the middle of summer in Antarctica, but it was still, high 30s during the day and gets down to 0 at night. So that's the summertime. It's a rough environment.
Yeah, anything below 30 is kind of crazy. Like, 30 and above is pretty tolerable. I mean, to a point, obviously, but yeah, no, that's when it gets bad, and that's summer. So, what is it like in the winter or during its winter? Like negative something, like negative 30 or something?
Well, one, it's dark. It's pitch black.
Ugh.
So you get, that's when the glaciers grow. So glaciers will grow 50 or 60% of their size. So the ice deepens. So it goes from 30 or 40 feet on the continent itself up to 50 or 60 feet. So the whole continent expands in terms of ice and snow. And so it's a deadly place to be you can't be there during the winter and survive.
Yeah, no, it sounds crazy.
It is, yeah.
That sounds bizarre. I mean, like, yeah, no, that's interesting. I never met anybody. I mean, I saw like Metallica did like a concert there or something like that. I saw, and like I've seen like certain things that are kind of cool, but I've never, yeah, I don't know if I've ever talked to somebody that's been in Antarctica. I don't think, like, as far as like, I mean, I've watched YouTube videos on it and stuff, and like TikTok. And stuff, but I don't think I've ever actually formally met somebody that's been there. That's kind of exciting. That seems like that's like one of the last like territories that are kind of like to be discovered still on Earth. It seems like.
It is. And you get that feeling when you're there, which is this is really virgin territory. And, the animals dominate. I mean, there are no animals. There are basically 7 kinds of penguins, but you've got orcas and you've got humpback whales and gray whales. And so the marine life and the penguins dominate. You are really second place in terms of the living life on the Antarctic Peninsula and the Antarctic continent.
That's crazy that life can exist there. Even like that's like super bizarre to me that life can even exist there. I mean, it makes sense. Like I guess like whales have all that blubber and stuff. I mean, certain ones make sense, but a penguin, they're like tiny little animals. That's crazy they could even survive in that. I mean, God definitely has a sense of humor, man. It's like he's like I'm gonna let these guys like live there, but no one else on Earth can.
Yeah.
And like no, it's definitely weird and interesting. I guess the sun just doesn't hit that area at all. I mean, that makes sense, but it's just that's a bizarre thing, man. Like
it is bizarre.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And like yeah, I couldn't imagine. Speaking of Argentina, you kind of look like its leader. You have like the sideburns and stuff. Like, you look like their new president. Kind of like you have the same vibe.
Milei. He's quite radical, but he's really turning the Argentinian economy around. So
he's like a musician or something? He was like kind of like a.
He was a musician, yeah. He's only, I think he's 45 or 46. He's a young guy. He just took office he just became president in January. So he just took office, and people were saying, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, and it's not going to work." He's an economist by training, actually.
Yeah,
and he's made some really radical changes. He's brought the inflation rate down. He's begun to turn around the production capacity in Argentina. Restoring basically middle class values and people able to reach the middle class, because it's very much of a third world nation, very rich, very poor. And he's really going to create a middle class there, and it's working.
Seems like it is.
People are actually kind of rallying around and saying, well, maybe his radical ideas can do it, but I think he can.
Yeah. You're always doing something right when like you have a bunch of people screaming that you're not doing it right. That's how the world kind of like seems to unfold. Like people called Galileo a fool. People called like Darwin a fool. People called. I mean, people that they killed Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? It's just like, so what, you know what I mean? It's like no matter what, it's just a bunch of people that have never done anything, like basically bad mouthing anyone that tries. That's what Earth seems like. It's just like, I mean, and he's interesting. I don't know where it's going, and I'd like to see where it's at now. It's good to see that it's doing that, but like, he's probably one of the first like libertarian presidents in the world, I guess, which is kind of exciting for the libertarian movement and stuff. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Showing what we always kind of knew, that libertarians are right. They just don't win elections. It's like that's how I feel about them in America, at least. You know, they tend to be the most thoughtful. I'd say their biggest mistake of the Libertarian Party is they think everyone's intelligent. I think that's the biggest. Because like a lot of libertarians I talk to will be like, man, everyone should be homeschooled. I'm like, everyone? I'm like, everyone should be homeschooled. I'm like, you haven't met a lot of people. Like, I'm just saying, like, I don't. Everyone's smart at something. And I'm not knocking. I'm not saying people aren't really even dumb. They're just like, they're all just like smart at something else that, you know what I mean? Other than that, you know,
everybody has a talent.
Yeah, it's like that Einstein quote, like judging like what is it, like judging a fish's ability to climb a tree or something. It's like that's what we're doing with everybody, and I think everybody has their own like genius and their own like foolishness, and I think like I think this I don't know, that's definitely interesting seeing how Argentina is playing out. Look, so is that a Spanish speaking? Is that Spanish speaking there?
It is, but what's interesting about Argentina, it's very Italian.
That makes a lot of sense.
You hear, after World War II or during World War II and shortly thereafter, Argentina has very abundant fishing territory, and so Italians have had a great deal of fishing. So they migrated in vast numbers to the east coast of Argentina. So you'll be in Buenos Aires, and you'll hear some of the best Italian restaurants you've ever seen in your life are in Buenos Aires, and you hear a lot of Italian. So that's a common language. Spanish is the people's language, but if you push it a little bit, you find a tremendous amount of Italian. That surprised me.
That's surprising to hear, and I believe you when you say it. I'm just kind of like, it's definitely surprising to hear that. I definitely want to go there. I haven't been to South America much. I've only really been to like Mexico, Jamaica, Canada, and across America. But I definitely want to see South America. And I definitely want to see like parts of Asia and stuff. I like South. I mean, I want to. That's kind of my retirement plan. Is like get rich in American currency and then go live somewhere else where everything's 20 cents.
You wouldn't be alone.
Yeah, that's a lot of expatriates and stuff. And I'm not necessarily being an expatriate, but I definitely want to live like in those other countries in my retirement, probably.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. It's a great goal. I mean, a lot of people are doing that. More people than ever.
I'd have to talk my wife into it, and she's a hard sell so far.
That's always the trick.
Is it culture shock going there? Like the first time you went there, was it kind of culture shock?
To Argentina?
Yeah.
No, it's like a lot of it. You know, the Latin America. It's funny. We have bias that somehow they're backward, or their cities are less beautiful or undeveloped. Buenos Aires is gorgeous.
Santiago looks beautiful too.
Santiago, Chile is gorgeous. I mean, these cities are beautiful. They look like you're in downtown, Los Angeles or St. Louis or New York. Huge skyscrapers, beautiful restaurants. A lot of the waterfronts are developed in Argentina. So it's there's a lot there, and it's kind of surprising how well developed these countries are. You can go there and live there, and you're not going backward in time or living in a primitive conditions. You can live very, very well at much reduced cost than you can in the United States. That's for sure.
Well, especially California. Your prices are way crazier than mine.
Oh, they're terrible. They're terrible.
Yeah, your gas prices, your house prices. I mean, everything's crazy out there, man. It makes me like when I was young, I always just wanted to buy stuff in Missouri and sell it out there. I wanted just buy a car out here and then drive it out there and sell it. But no, I mean, it's supply and demand. I mean, you're next to the ocean. That's supply and demand. Everyone thinks they want to live next to the ocean. So and some do. Some actually do want to live there, but most people think they do.
Yeah.
It's how I feel. And that's very interesting. I live in a very low cost. I mean, Missouri is very low cost of living. St. Louis is kind of like very low cost of living. Like
I've been to St. Louis many times.
Oh, have you? What parts?
St. Louis per se, Southwestern Bell Corporation used to be headquartered in St. Louis.
It did used to be here, right? It did used to be, I think.
It was.
Who bought that?
In Texas. It's in Houston now. It's in Texas.
Someone bought Southwestern Bell, didn't they? Someone owns it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know what the merged company is, but it's from basically the phone system for Texas and that region bought Southwestern Bell and changed its name. But anyway, Southwestern Bell was one of the first companies. Remember, I said I worked with corporations. After AT&T broke up and Southwestern Bell became an independent telecommunications company, it was one of the first ones to develop a corporate wellness program for their employees because they realized a lot of their executives are burning out, getting sick, having heart attacks. They wanted to see what they could do. So for 2 years, I probably flew in and out of St. Louis at least once, if not twice a month. So I know St. Louis area quite well.
I love it here. Yeah, I'm downtown right now. I'm like across the street from the Arch, and like in this
Oh
old
yeah,
in
right.
this old bank that I'm in this old bank that funded the World's Fair.
Yeah.
That they turned it into office space, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And I love it here, and like I like California too. I think I made fun of it quite a bit in the last couple of years, but like I'm over that now. It's like I want to help it. I don't want to make fun of it anymore. It's like I'd be like, oh, it's all the homeless people live there, blah blah blah. I mean, oh, it must be.
Problem.
It is a huge problem, and it's not. And I'm done laughing about it. It's basically like this thing. It's like I think it always scared me, to be honest, because like if these towns like L.A. and New York fall, that's the rest of America too. I mean, if you and a lot of these people, like a lot of Missouri guys, are like all about like they're like, oh yeah, yeah, LA and New York's gone, but like they're not going to take us down. I'm like, dude, if they could take down LA and New York, you think St. Charles, Missouri is going to be hard? You mean or whatever? You know, it's like some town. You know, it's like, I'm just like that's why I try to wake people up. I'm like, and it kind of hit me. It's like, man, we're sharing this planet with all these people. Those people are basically victims to bad circumstances, and like they're basically being rewarded to do drugs, and they ignore life and just fall apart. And it's like. And like I don't want to go down too far down that rabbit hole, but it feels like the most boring takeover ever, like globalist takeover of all time, and it's just boring. It's like who wants to pretend they're in charge of a water rock? You know, it's just boring. It's like let's just do cool stuff. Like you mean enjoy the short amount of time you have here. Don't be an asshole to people, for lack of better terminology. And just it's not hard to not be an asshole. You know, it's actually easier to be a good person. You know what I mean?
I think it is.
And it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I know California freaks me out, but also I just want to see it come back. I just want to see like Los Angeles come back and just just.
Well, yeah, California has this problem. You know, 30% of all the homeless people in the United States are in California.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
That's crazy, and the drug problem is really out of control. I mean, I love San Francisco, but you know, the drugs and homelessness is really out of control. In the city, and it's suffering, and it's got to find its way back. It's got to reinvent itself, and they're trying, but you know the downtown is decimated. You know, so many companies have left during COVID, and they're not coming back into the downtown areas. A lot of the big stores are leaving, and the trick is to try to figure out how to reinvent the downtown area to attract people again.
That's very similar on a smaller level. That's what we're trying to do in St. Louis, just smaller population wise, but same exact thing. Yep. We're trying to figure that out right now. Because the AT&T building down here sold for $40 million like a couple years ago, and it sold for $4 million this year. So I mean, downtown is a investor's market right now, from my perspective, and I believe that downtown will come back. It'll turn into maybe nice places to live instead of office spaces or something. I'm trying to. I mean, you have. I don't know how you said what used to be the Holiday Inn across like the Arch. They had those 3 Holiday Inn buildings back in the day, back when you probably came here. They're now like something called like mansion housing, and those guys are they've moved them down to month-to-month leases, and now they're slowly remodeling it, jacking up the rent on these people. So I'm seeing it happen across the city basically right now.
Yeah. It's coming back. And it will come back, and that's the trick: is to make it a place to live, not just to work.
Yeah, it's a ghost town. Like, here's the thing: I like that it's a ghost town after 5 p.m. to be honest, but it's not very economic to maintain that. You mean like I selfishly love that it's like it's just like a video game map after a certain time, and like maybe you run into one guy who asks you for like a cigarette or something, and I'm just like. I mean, I'm just like, what are you talking? Like, he's like, can I have some change in a cigarette? I'm like, is this 1985? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. It's like nobody has that anymore. Nobody has cigarettes. Nobody has cash anymore. It's all card. Everybody's vaping. Like, I just want to like wake them up a little bit and like tell them how to like. I'm like, ask me for $20 instead. I mean, I feel like if you ask me for $20, I'd probably respect it more. You know. It's like a dollar. They're like, "Do you have $1?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." Can I have it? I'm like, "No." You know, it's like, what are you gonna do? It's not.
What are you gonna do with $1?
Yeah, I'll feed you. I'll hug you. I'll help you out. But like $1 is not even helping you. It's just inconveniencing me. I mean, it's just like that's all it really does. I have to figure out a way to cash out $1 to give you. It's like I don't know. But most of these people, you're homeless. Okay, you're not in you're outside of San Francisco. But San Francisco has the craziest homeless people, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like those guys will yell at you, laughing. I mean, they have some demons, bro. Those guys have some demons for sure.
Yeah,
and it's sad, and it's like I want to see them do. I'm laughing nervously rather than like at them. I think that we should we definitely figure out some kind of resolution. And in St. Louis, it seems like most of it's just jobs. I mean, if you flooded the market with like if you brought Amazon here or you did something, I mean, with that, I don't know what San Francisco's problem. Drugs have always. You guys marketed the 1960s too hard, where your marketing is still going on. People think they could just like run away, have nothing going on, and go to California. And I'm like, bro, like a studio apartment's like $3,000 a month, man. You need a job out there. You can't be homeless in California. I mean, you can, but it's not a good plan.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the marketing from the 60s, I think. I mean, you guys, it had a great idea in the beginning, and I think it went from
50 years ago. You know, the 60s or 50 years ago. Lots changed.
Oh, I bet. No, I bet. And I think that was the 60s, man, we were talking about that a little before the show. Like, I think that was such a, I mean, as a historian kind of vibe, like I said, I clearly did not live it, at least in this lifetime. And I think that, I think it was such a cool idea. Like just the idea of like love and authenticity and like creating art and like not fighting wars. And I love that whole concept. It's just like they took it too far with the drugs, it seems like. When it went to like speed and like heroin, it seemed like it destroyed it from my perspective. I didn't live through it, but that's what it seems like.
You know, there was a period of time probably when they call it the 60s, but it's really from 1970 to 75. And I lived in Haight-Ashbury for a while, and it was magical and it was very real. You had free band concerts with, you know, the Grateful Dead, the Jefferson Airplane, and the Doors, and you know, Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert were out handing out LSD because it was still legal. Nureyev was there. So it was a very magical time, a lot of creativity, communes, and you know, food kitchens, etc. But but what happened was as people became attracted to it, that were thugs, basically criminals that were peddling drugs, living off people, exploiting the hippie generation. That's what led to it deteriorating into its downfall.
Yeah, because in a society like that, everyone has to be on board with being a good person, or it doesn't work. Like you saw the same thing with like Tibet, like all those Tibet monks and stuff were just taken over by like just for lack of better terminology, complete assholes from China. Just just coming there with guns and bully all these guys that are probably evolved more mentally and spiritually than the bullies with rocks and sticks and guns, and it just, I mean, it's just so sad that that's to ruin it. Because like philosophically speaking, what a great time. It was like the American Renaissance, you know. It was like what a great time to read about or learn about and stuff. And I mean, I live in a bus, so I'm pretty similar to probably how you were at my age or younger, you know.
Yeah.
I live in a school bus that I definitely
saw that in your introduction.
Oh yeah, that's where I live. That's where I live. And we're talking about the separation of work life. I work in towers, so I don't just work in my bus all day. Like if I literally, like when I worked there, all I did was work for 12 hours. I'm like, oh God, I gotta get a life. And like I started just like I separated between like going like I do the downtown thing for work, and then I live in the bus. So I have like the no bills and best of both worlds type
Good
thing.
for you. Yeah, I mean, you're finding a way to make it work for you.
Yeah. I mean, and the best way is to make a lot of money and spend none of it. That's the best. That's the best way to do it. I mean, like, because I feel like I have a lot of those like leanings from like your generation and stuff like out there and stuff like or that time period you were a part of rather. I think I have a lot of learnings from that. And I love the Doors. Doors are one of my favorite bands. But
they were incredible.
Looking back though, it kind of lets me down because I feel like most of my heroes were just CIA agents. You know, are you familiar with this? Like how Timothy Leary was like the CIA, Jim Morrison most likely was, because like his dad was the highest ranking admiral during the Vietnam War, and then like and just credentialism type things. I like I said, it's hard to say Jim Morrison, but Timothy Leary was at least proven, I think, and then a couple other guys were. It's like it's just kind of sad. It's like I don't know what the goal was really. It's almost like anything. Like it's like in my generation we had like the those Wall Street protests in New York and all that stuff. And it seems like the FBI has nothing, like these federal organizations rather, these 3-letter ABC like kind of clubs have nothing better to do and have a big budget. So they have a bunch of guys that don't really have jobs other than there, and then they can infiltrate all day and have unlimited budgets. So it seems like any movement kind of gets infiltrated by that. Like even down to like festival like things, it's like, even that's not threatening really to me. I mean, it's weird. I don't know. America had so many good opportunities to really change the world. And I think what we called the 60s, like as you put it more accurately, what we called the 60s versus the 60s.
Right.
The 60s were more Leave It to Beaver. Like it seems like more like or whatever. It seemed like they like there was soda fountains and all that. It seemed like to me. I didn't live it, but it seemed like that. To where like what we called the 60s really had a chance to change the entire world. And like think about where we'd be right now with social media and stuff if we still had that outlook on life. If people cared about each other, or at least at the very least pretended like they did because it was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll even take that. I'll even take the guys that just pretended to be good people to get laid. I would even take those people at this point with how damaged the reputation of our country and world has become. And I think that was such an interesting time to look back. I mean, as a kid, that was like prime to me. I loved the music, I loved the art, I loved the ideology. And I smoke a lot of weed too. I mean, I think people take it a little too far on other drugs, but I basically breathe marijuana when I'm not working. It's like,
Yeah.
do you still smoke? Do you still smoke weed?
I don't. No, I mean, I just didn't particularly like it.
Oh, you didn't ever as a kid even?
Not really. I never got into it. I mean, I've certainly tried recreational substances, as they say, but marijuana never. I just never appealed to me.
And feel free not to answer this if it jeopardizes your career or anything. But did you by recreational things? Did you mean like mushrooms and stuff like that?
Yeah.
What was taking mushrooms in the 60s like? Like that's probably an amazing question.
Wow, hard to. I mean, it was a long time ago. But,
yeah. It wasn't forever ago.
It for me, I mean, I grew up in a Catholic environment until I kicked that altogether when I was about 13. For me, what the psychedelic experience did was reopen spirituality and directly experience mysticism. So that's the part that I got out of it, which is it opened the world of the higher, the mystical, the magical realms. That's what it did. And marijuana felt like it was like an escapist drug, or it was like like cocaine was an escapist drug, or heroin, or the heavy drugs were all escapist, and that wasn't of interest to me. The mushrooms were a way of opening reality, not closing it down.
Yeah, I think that wasn't DNA like discovered, like the double helix or whatever terminology that was discovered by a guy tripping, wasn't it?
I don't know. That's an interesting question.
I believe that to be true. I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not going to gamble on it, but I do think that's true.
Watson and Crick worked out of a lab in Cambridge, in the UK. They're the ones that actually came up with the structure.
Okay.
Linus Pauling had a group in Palo Alto that was working on trying to discover the structure of the DNA, and then Watson and Crick were the ones who used basically kind of a projective photography. And when they saw the image that was projected through these substances, they said that looks like a double helix. And that's when they came up with the description and published a paper in 1952 was the first discovery by them. So it wasn't, no, they weren't tripping. They were very straight scientists.
Interesting. Okay. No, interesting. Okay. I thought that was, but yeah, I could be mixing up stories with somebody else. Are you familiar with Billy Carson?
No.
Billy Carson is a very fascinating guy. You can go down a guy like you could probably go down the YouTube rabbit hole with this guy for hours. He's a very interesting kind of guy like you are, like very, very just like well learned and interesting. He was explaining to me that he thinks that basically you could store so much data in like DNA. Like you could store like terabytes of data in DNA, which seems very interesting to me.
Yeah, I would actually totally agree with that. And there's some theoretical work that the core of the DNA is a superconductor, and a superconductor even at room temperature. So no one's ever proven you can have a superconductor at room temperature, but the theory is that the DNA is a superconductor at room temperature. If so, you could literally store an infinite amount of data or information in the core of the DNA. I mean, we have there are trillions and trillions and literally trillions of cells that are interacting with DNA all the time in our bodies. So we try to figure that out in terms of science or interaction between different cell systems. It's almost impossible. But I do think that it's very likely that it is superconducting at its core.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like just to think about it, and like takes a little further. Just while I have someone of your intelligent person, like what are your thoughts on like parallel dimensions and stuff?
About what?
Parallel dimensions, like
Oh,
what are your
well,
thoughts on that?
I think it's certainly possible. Theoretically, they prove out. I mean, if you look at the mathematics of parallel dimensions, or other dimensions, certainly other dimensions, fifth dimension, sixth dimension, we know that they exist because mathematically you can demonstrate that it has to. But how to experience that, what it really means, I don't think anybody really knows yet. And parallel realities, again, same thing, is that's predicted by quantum physics, that there should be other realities and splitting realities. So, you brush your teeth one day with your right hand, the next day it's you in another reality brushing your teeth with your left hand. It's entirely possible. It's been a favorite science fiction theme for decades.
Same, bro. Same. There's this '90s show called Sliders, and I completely watch it still to this day.
Oh.
It was kind of like what American culture would consider like a not successful, but I completely love it still. I don't measure merit has nothing to do with what the crown thinks to me. I mean, it's like I'll enjoy something regardless of other people knowing about it. But no, I think like with M theory and like string theory and stuff, like a lot of that stuff came out in the '90s, or M theory I think came out in the '90s, where like a lot of these guys are like kind of like trying to use that to prove that multiple dimensions exist and stuff, and like which is, I mean, interesting. I don't know, that Einstein Rosenberg Podolsky bridge and like all that stuff like that. It seems wildly entertaining, and I would love to explore it after someone really smart did it first.
Yeah, right. You're right. Exactly.
I don't want to be the Amelia Earhart of parallel dimension, travel, but I wouldn't mind being like the Lindbergh, after it already happened, but no, I think like it's definitely wildly entertaining, and like that's what they were saying. Like, and who knows what you can trust with the FBI? I mean, not to be rude, but that's just my perception. But I'm saying, like, who knows what to trust these people? But they were saying that the Roswell thing in the '40s was actually interdimensional beings. Like when you read the reports and stuff, they were saying they weren't traveling space and time; they were traveling dimensions. Then when they crashed.
That's very possible. I've heard those theories. There was a friend of mine, John Mack, who was a professor of psychiatry at Harvard, wrote a book called Interrupted Journey. Oh God, that's not the name of it. I've forgotten the name of his book, but he died a number of years ago. He's in a bike riding accident. He wrote a book that basically was the first to establish the fact that people had legitimate encounters with other beings. And his interpretation of it wasn't necessarily all physical, but it was interdimensional. And that was the basis of his book and his theory. Resoundingly criticized. They tried to run him out of his position, but he was a tenured professor. And a number of people, including myself, wrote letters of support for him. But that was his theory, was what you just described, which is that these were interdimensional beings that explained a lot of the phenomena, like passing through walls. That doesn't happen in 3D reality. It happens if there is another dimension. And that was part of what he found in talking to patients, that they described these experiences, which he would interpret as, again, shifting realities or parallel realities.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that was just saying that, but I mean, you have like remote viewing and stuff. You have, and you have like, yeah. The perception of dimensions. You have a lot of people on DMT talk about like going experiencing that, and I I don't. I've never done DMT, so I don't have an educated opinion on it either way. A lot of times when people talk about doing hallucinogens, like they sound like they've never actually done them. But like whenever I hear people like talk about, like, I was watching this TikTok video of this girl talking about she drank like some form of liquid LSD and flew on a plane, but was like talking about all, yeah, terrible to me. I don't even want to fly. I don't even want to fly sober. I couldn't imagine on acid.
Really?
But
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, like, she was describing it, and she's like, yeah, everything was like jumping around and like all this stuff. Like I've never seen that on acid. I've never seen that like I don't know how to describe it. She's like talking about all of her things were dancing around. I'm like, that sounds like what a child thinks that doing drugs is like.
Right.
That's what
Right.
that's what it sounded like to me. And I wonder if the DMT stories are similar. Is why I brought that up.
Well, everyone's experience with the drug is different. And the use of hallucinogens like mushrooms and cactus in the Southwest and mushrooms in South America, they're all within a structured environment. I mean, there's an understanding of what the person is going to experience, and it provides a context. So that it isn't just spacing out. It's like you're going to encounter a certain being or a certain animal spirit, or you're going to talk to the trees or whatever is going to happen. And it does happen. And that's a reality. And again, that's another dimension that is not three-dimensional. It's fourth or fifth dimensional. And it's been around for thousands of years. So you know that it's real. It's a matter of how do you demonstrate it? How do you prove it? And that's the difficulty. Science can't prove what it can't see and feel. And you can't see and feel a person's experience.
Yeah, it's funny how you said like spoke to like animal spirits and stuff like that, because like I remember like tripping. I don't remember if it was mushrooms or what it was. Like and I was on like I was in South City, St. Louis, and like I remember like looking going outside to smoke or something, because whenever I get intoxicated, I think I smoke cigarettes. And I went outside and I saw these trees, and they just looked like nerves to me when I was tripping more so, and like they felt like really old. Like it was just like when I looked at them, there's like these huge trees. And I'm like, you guys are silent predators waiting for me to die so you can consume me. Is what it felt like. It was like, and I felt like I was on that plane with them. And I'm like, oh man, you guys are smarter than me. It was like this weird. There's this weird thing is like, and then you're starting to realize studies are coming out that they could feel when you rip a leaf off them and stuff now, and like which I always kind of thought that, but now it's being kind of proven seismically and stuff.
Yes.
And that's super interesting. Like. And then I mean, just imagine the consciousness and things around us that we just underestimate.
Right.
Like in plants and everything else. It's very fascinating to me. It's like the things that we just blindly do not know and have arrogance about. And I think like plants are a huge thing like that. I think plants are they seem very intelligent to me.
Yeah, there are a number of articles coming out about the fact that looking at plants as having a consciousness, not perhaps like we have, but they respond to fear. They cope. They warn other plants of danger. When danger encroaches in one area of a plant patch, it transmits the information to another part of the plant patch, and the plant produces an excretion that's foul, if you will, to the predators. So there is clearly a form of interconnectedness among plants that involves communication, that involves adaptation, fending off threats, doing a lot of the things that we think of are basic human functions. But they belong in the plant kingdom, certainly in the animal kingdom, unequivocally. Now, the research coming out about elephants and how elephants communicate and work together in packs and families and have a language. There was just a study I was reading a few days ago about they're actually beginning to decipher elephant languages and customs. So they greet each other in a certain way. Certain phonetics and intonations between them have very definite meanings, like food is over this way, or follow me, or water is over here, or protect the baby elephant. But they're beginning to find that there's a definite language that communicates between elephants.
That's amazing. They could prove that. I know we've heard that with dolphins and other animals and
Dolphins?
stuff. That's
Absolutely.
That's super amazing to me. And like I think like I can't believe how long like my ancestors downplayed how intelligent animals were. But every generation builds on top of each other. So I mean, there's things I think right now that we disprove by my grandchildren and I'll be laughed at too. But but I still think it's like fascinating, like the disregard for animals And that people just like, oh, it's just dumb. It can't speak English. Like the American perception is if you do not speak English, you're a fool.
Right.
You can be a person, you can be a cat, you can be whatever. If you don't speak English, you're a fool to Americans. And I love that concept. It's funny, but also sad.
Well, it's true. I mean, you said before about, PhDs can be boring or uptight, because that's the training. There's a certain model of science that's reductionistic, and a certain way of looking at the world, and a certain way of proving things, and in your belief systems. And if something doesn't fit within that, it's dismissed. It's not taken seriously. And so animal communication was like, oh, don't be silly. Plants are even more ridiculous. But yeah, right. But what's happening now is you get people like Jane Goodall, who basically created knowledge about the chimpanzees and the complexity of their environment, or Diana Fossey with the great apes. But you need, these are the pioneers that you talked about also. They have the scientific training and discipline, but they don't stop there. You can't. Once you learn about the tools and you earn your degrees and you do whatever, then you need to keep thinking and go beyond that. And that's what they've done. And so they have created this great reality for us.
And to not just limit people, in my point of view, that have doctorates. I think anybody that takes themselves too seriously, and it extends to multiple careers and multiple people. I think to know you're not okay. Like, how do you say this? Like to know you're dumb is important. I think it's very important to know that we're dumb, and I mean, no disrespect by saying that, but on the grand scheme, we're fools, on the grand scheme, and to know that's everything. I think the guys that think they know everything know the least, and I don't mean just to typecast like my experience with people doctorates and stuff like that. I don't mean to. I think it was almost like a childlike disappointment when I meet a couple of these guys. Like, I'd have like quantum physicists on, and they were so limited in how they viewed the world.
Right.
And I was let down like a child finding out Santa was fake. I'm like, is everyone just selling books? I mean, I'm like that's kind of how I felt. Nothing wrong with book sales. Don't get me wrong. And check out Dr. Pelletier's books. Google them. But I'm just saying, like, and I mean that in a good way. I'm just saying, like, you have substance to you outside of being a book salesman. The same way I'm basically a T-shirt salesman as a comedian. It's like you have to have complexity outside of it. Not take yourself too seriously. Understand that accomplishments are cool to you, but I mean they're not the hierarchy of life, and where like you should talk down to people that have things that you don't respect. It's just it's just like that's how I view academia. I think and you seem like a guy kind of laugh at it and kind of have fun, and like you seem like a guy who would defend himself if I was being insulting or something, but like if I'm being respectful, you just seem like you'd show the same thing. And I like that quality, and I've been very blessed these last couple of weeks to have such brilliant people on this show. And and we took like a roller coaster ride around around subjects, because I very rarely meet somebody that's been to Antarctica and is just in the same situation you're in. So I had to just nerd out and ask my conspiracy theory questions and go down this long kind of road. And I rarely met people that lived in Haight-Ashbury. It's like an American fable. So I had to. So if you're viewing this and you were stuck on the original subject we had, there was a half hour of that at the beginning. So enjoy that part of it. But we did take a roller coaster ride outside of that, and
it's been fun for me. Hope it has for you. Yeah,
same. No, I love it. I absolutely love like just kind of picking apart people's brains and like seeing where they come from and their thoughts and stuff. I mean, I'm just like a kid that has a million questions still. That looks like an old person. That's how I feel. But do you want to throw out any links and stuff? Because we're at the hour and a half mark. I like to keep it around this rate just for the human attention span and stuff. Like, do you have some websites and stuff people could easily find your work and stuff? You've written a lot of books. Like,
it's easy. It's just drpelletier.com.
Okay,
that's my website. Yeah, Dr. Pelletier, my last name .com. And that'll get you to website with books. It's got a lot of free articles, it's got videos, it's got lectures, PowerPoints. I mean, it's got everything I've ever done is on that website.
That's amazing that we can condense a life's work into a website now. It's crazy.
I know, isn't it?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, yeah. And we can learn and grow off that. If we keep this going and don't destroy ourselves, we could really have something going with this.
That's
how many books have you written? I read you wrote a lot of books. Like, it was like 50 books.
Yeah, 15. The last one, the Change Your Genes, is the 15th book.
That's a lot of books, bro. Like that's like sadly, most people don't even read 15 books in their lifetime, let alone write them. So that's from my perspective, that's quite the accomplishment. Very entertaining, and I'd like to see. I'd like to check out some other ones. I briefly. Do you have audiobooks of your books too?
I'm not sure. I think some of them do. I'm not sure.
Okay, no.
If so, they'd be on Amazon.
Cool. No, I'm the kind of guy just like put on a good audio book while I work out or something like that.
Yeah.
Like learning 15 things while I'm working out or something. Because that means I can't read. That means it means I'm completely illiterate. But I like hearing other people read it. I like hearing James Earl Jones read it to me.
Yeah,
no,
right.
But,
He's got a great voice.
No, he does, man. But I appreciate you coming on here. And if you have if you want to tackle other subjects, I'm more than open to it later and stuff. And I appreciate you coming on here, man. You got a great energy, and it's an honor to have you on here and talk about the subjects we kind of did, and it's just fun to just talk about smart stuff every once in a while, and just kind of break it, just kind of go down those rabbit holes. I appreciate your time.
Well, I enjoyed this. I love your laughter, your energy, and your humor. So thank you for the invitation. Seriously.
No, for sure. It's it's funny because we're very similar people. It seems like in a lot of ways. Like it seems like we have the same kind of we have the same kind of thing. We did different things, I guess, but it's the same. It's the same kind of
same energy. We're explorers.
Yeah. There's no. I mean, a professor is basically the same thing as a comedian, where you're just talking to a group of people with your opinions. We're both public speakers in that regard, and yours is more respectable, I'd argue, than a bar and grill comedian like myself. But no, and one day I'll probably do what you do. I mean, I read a lot of professors. I don't know what your experience, but I read a lot of professors go into it later in life and stuff and get their masters and stuff. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm only having associates right now because I'm lazy. But I'll go back and get my bachelor's and masters.
Follow your dream, which is you're already following your dream. And so it'll evolve. I mean, you're 37. You've got 50 or 60 years. I mean, you've got another 3 lifetimes ahead of you.
That's interesting.
So follow your dream. See where it takes you. Seriously.
I think that's important. I've always kind of as long as nuclear weapons don't end the world I live in, I think we're allowed to continue whatever battles are going on right now. I don't care about whatever wars are going on, as long as they don't affect me. I think I would love to ultimately be a professor by the time I'm like 50 or something.
Do it. There's no reason not to. Seriously, no reason not to.
And we have some good schools here, like Wash U and SLU and stuff too. I kind of like the schools here. So when's the last time you were in St. Louis before we got out here?
Oh, that was quite a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
That's funny. I'm about the same with your state. I haven't, 10. I haven't been there in 10 years or 11 or so.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been in California quite a bit. I'd always take that. I do a lot of shows. I started doing shows on that side of the United States because that's where all the venues and money are. So it's there's not many comedy opportunities in the Midwest, or there wasn't when I started anyway. There are now.
Yeah.
There are
but
now.
You created a demand.
Yeah. No, I'm what you call a bar and grill comedian, right? I find these dive bars and I flood them with people. I find dive bars with great food and I flood them with people. It's kind of my thing.
To see you coming.
Do what?
They like to see you coming. That's why I say you created a demand.
Tried to. But yeah, no, thank you for your time. I feel like I'm just talking circles. I'm hyped up still, and I want to talk for 9 hours, but I feel like you lose the focus of humans, and you probably have better things to do than continue to go backwards in your career and be here. So I appreciate you being here and stuff, brother. You have a good night and stuff, and I appreciate everybody watching this on a Wednesday night. I know East Coast, it's like 11:10 right now. So if you're in the East Coast, you're the real hero right now. Stand up watching just us discuss whatever we think the world is. And I think I appreciate without the sponsors, without the thousands of people watching this live right now, and without guests like Dr. Pelletier, this would be completely delusional, and it would be a Zoom call, and I'm not the one making this happen. Everyone else is, and I'm a part of it, and I'm very aware of that, and I appreciate everybody watching this. And Dr. Pelletier, thank you very much for your time, and you're welcome back anytime you have a cool story or anytime you have a cool subject, or you write your 16th book. I'll be here.
So remember that.
So thank you, and pleasure to meet you.
All right, thank you.
You have a great night, and
take care. It's a pleasure.
Likewise, brother. And then thank you all again for watching. I appreciate it. This Dr. Pelletier. Look up his books.
we briefly discussed one of his newer books in the first half hour part of this portion. Great guest, fun guy. Just, I mean, just like talking about deep subjects with somebody fun is important, I think, in learning and stuff. And I think maybe it went down a little easier than you thought it would have when some of the people were telling me this was kind of a deeper, complex issue. But I love you all. You're making my dreams happen by even watching this. So thank you for helping a guy from Missouri get thousands of people to watch a show he opens his laptop for. So I appreciate all of you. God bless you and good night.